This video is sponsored by Isolate, manufacturers of the mains conditioner and power cords used by a British audiophile. For more information about these and their other products, please click the link in the description. My track record with DALI speakers on this channel has been pretty good so far, so I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to review the new DALI Rubikore series. Especially considering they have technology derived from their £40,000 flagship Epikore 11 speakers. But which one to choose? Naturally, I wanted to select something that I thought would perform pretty well, so let me just briefly take you through my thought process. To this day, the DALI Minuet SEs remain my benchmark mini monitors. For £1,500 they offer excellent resolution, a wonderfully natural tone and just a hint of added warmth that suits me down to the ground. In February 2023, I reviewed DALI's flagship stand mount speakers. The Epikore 2s retailed for about £5,000 back then. Currently they're on sale with UK dealers for about £3,000 to £3,500. So I'm guessing that the Epikore 2s are going to be replaced with the Epikore 2s relatively soon. I was disappointed that my review sample came in a rather dull satin white, but there are some gorgeous wood finishes available. The Epikore 2s are one of the most revealing and natural sounding speakers I've heard in my listening room, regardless of price. I found them dynamically a bit polite, and that's why I pulled them back from my top outstanding award to highly recommended. And that brings me on to today. I thought the floor standers are more likely to tick that dynamic box, and the Rubikore 6s, unlike the stand mount Rubikore 2s, have a planar magnetic super tweeter. I'm keen to find out what that brings to the party. So, do these new DALI speakers live up to expectations? The DALI Rubikore 6 speakers retail for £4,499 a pair in the UK, available in 4 finishes: a high gloss maroon wood, an equally glossy black or white, and a more subdued natural walnut. Styling is very conventional and understated, but these speakers are well put together. Removing the woven fabric grille reveals 4 drivers mounted to a front baffle with a slight curvature. Measurements are 990 by 200 by 380 millimeters or 39.1 by 7.9 by 15 inches, each speaker weighing 23 kilograms or just over 50 pounds. The DALI Rubikore 6s are fitted with discrete aluminium outrigger feet to provide additional stability. The bottom 165mm 6.5-inch woofer runs from 800 Hz down to a specified 38 Hz. The second woofer runs alongside it but extends all the way up to 2600 Hz in this 2.5-way configuration, at which point duties are handed over to a 29mm 1.2-inch soft dome tweeter. At 14,000 Hz, the soft dome starts to narrow its dispersion and a 17 by 44mm super tweeter kicks in, extending the response way above the audible band to 34,000 Hz. The rear showcases 2 sets of fine quality speaker binding posts for bi-amping and bi-wiring. DALI manufacture everything in-house, down to the screws and yes, the speaker binding posts. There are 2 flared ports for reasons I'm just about to get into. The reason why the Rubikore 6s have 2 ports is because there are 2 enclosures inside each speaker. One for the top 3 drivers and another for the bottom woofer, which, as previously stated, is operating from 800 Hz down to a port tuning of around 38 Hz. I'm glad for the extra bass loading. I found the Epikore 2s to be light in the lower registers given the size of the mid-woofer and enclosure. I'm not sure if that's down to limited throw on the driver or the proprietary material they use in the magnet structure. So let's talk about the magnet structure. Magnets naturally need to be made out of magnetic material, normally iron. The problem is that iron conducts electricity and the moving voice coil induces eddy currents in the surrounding magnetic structure, which results in energy losses. A soft magnetic composite material, SMC for short, is manufactured by a specialist company for DALI. Each granule of iron is coated before forming the magnet motor structure. This prevents eddy currents from being generated. DALI has data to show that SMC significantly reduces hysteresis losses and frequency-dependent effects. They claim that distortion, and in particular third harmonic distortion, is reduced by as much as 15 decibels. SMC first found its way into the Epikore series, but now is in the majority of DALI speakers. They've learnt some lessons from their recent Epikore flagship project as well, which has trickled down into the Rubikore series. The maroon wood paper pulp cone has been a DALI trademark for ages, but the cone profile is new. Termed clarity cone, it's been designed to provide extra damping at the 5 most resonant points on the cone surface. According to DALI, the reduction in resonances further lowers distortion and breakup modes, allowing a smoother transition into the tweeter. A hybrid soft dome and planar magnetic tweeter was present on the outgoing Rubicon 6s and 8s as well, but this one doesn't use ferrofluid cooling. That makes it faster, cleaner, but a little bit more difficult to manufacture. The reason for using a super tweeter is interesting. It isn't about extension. The DALI Epikore 2s that I reviewed some time ago have a soft dome tweeter that extends out to 30,000 Hz. So if it isn't about extension, what is it about? Well, it's about dispersion. The soft dome tweeter starts to narrow its dispersion at around 14,000 Hz, and that's where the planar magnetic super tweeter kicks in. And according to DALI, what it does is widen the sweet spot and open up the soundstage. I guess it's about time I told you if that's the case or not. I have to say that the integration between the 4 drivers on these speakers seems to be seamless as far as I can tell audibly. Normally when you get within a couple of meters of speakers of this size, you can hear the individual drivers if you move up and down a little bit. That isn't so much the case with the Rubikore 6s. Now I'll get into setup in the next section, but I can confirm that the sweet spot both horizontally and vertically is very big. They tick the soundstage box as well. It extends well beyond the speakers left and right with surprisingly good soundstage depth and secure placement of performers within it. I say surprisingly because soundstage and imaging can be an issue with floor standing speakers until you get to the higher price points. That's where manufacturers can spend the money to keep internal resonances and external reflections under control. Do the Rubikore 6s disappear like the best stand mount speakers I've heard below £3,000? No, the Quad Revela 1s sound a little bit more precise, open and detailed. The Rubikore 6s are very resolving though. Bass is delivered with clarity and depth. Mid-range has good body to flesh out vocals and lead instruments, whilst preserving enough micro detail to contribute to natural timbre. But it's the high frequencies that are the star of the show. The hybrid tweeter is a testament to DALI's engineering that the soft dome and the magnetic planar seem to work as one driver. They deliver cymbal hits, upper harmonic details and ambient information with a superbly airy and refined quality. Okay, so soundstage, imaging, detail across the bass, mid-range and treble all either very good or excellent, but I do find that the Rubikore 6s sound polite. There's something subdued in the presence region that's typically between 1000 and 4000 Hz, and it's what we associate with the bright sound or lack of bright sound. Now, I'm not a fan of bright sounding speakers or systems, but I do think that these DALI speakers are a little bit too easy listening. I can't help but wonder if it's the SMC material that reduces third harmonic distortion. A little bit of third harmonics can be quite musical and introduce some much needed acerbity to the presentation. DALI may argue that I'm just used to listening to higher levels of distortion, but I'd counter that I know what the rasp of a trumpet or the piercing notes of a violin should sound like. The other reason I find the Rubikore 6s easygoing is that the bass, even though it's clean and deep, isn't delivered with as much authority as some other speakers of this size. The ATC SEM40's single 200mm 8-inch woofer has a much more impactful mid-bass thump, although the DALI speaker possesses the more articulate tweeter. The same can be said for the CSS Typhon that delivers one of the most impressive bass lines of any speaker I've reviewed, but it can't match the top-end resolution of the Rubikore 6s either. The ATC SEM40s and the CSS Typhons aren't behemoths. They're what I'd call mid-sized floor-standing speakers, pretty much like the Rubikore 6s, but they do sound bigger and punch harder than these DALIs. The 3,333 Graham Audio LS6Fs are quite a bit smaller. I recall them having very similar bass extension and impact, similar mid-range resolution, but again, the DALI's top-end extension is better. Even the 3,499 Neat Elite Classics are only just a little bit less capable at shifting air at low frequencies. That's despite them having just one 165mm 6.5-inch woofer. What the Elite share with the Rubikores is great resolution through the frequency range. The Neat speakers are a little bit more balanced tonally, whereas the DALIs are a little bit recessed in the upper mid-range. I guess the DALI Rubikore 6s deal with dynamic swings like compact floor standers. There's nothing wrong with that. I just needed some time to reset my expectations. The DALI Rubikore 6s aren't bass monsters, so I didn't have to fight to get the position right in this mid-size room. This room's about 4 meters by about 7.5 meters, it's a little bit wider over there. So that's about 13 by 25 feet. Just about a meter, a little over 3 feet from the front baffle to the wall behind, and they were fine. DALI advised no towing on the speakers, but I did tow them in a bit to help snap the central image into focus. So pretty forgiving of speaker positioning and don't need massive room to breathe, but finding the right amplifier, that was a bit more of a struggle. My exposure 2510 wasn't right, it just sounded flat and dull, as if the spirit was taken out of the music. The Hagel H190 with its 150 watts per channel and 4000 damping factor is normally my get out of jail card when I'm struggling for synergy, but it didn't fare much better. Thankfully, my Wilsonton R8 running a combination of PS Vane and tungsol tubes injected some much needed vitality into the musical presentation. Listen, I don't want you to read too much into this. These are very resolving speakers with, let's call it, a civilized tonal character. The amplifiers that I tend to gravitate towards are either neutral or slightly on the warm side of neutral. Something cooler and livelier would work better. DALI in their own demos use NAD or Lindorff amplification. Both tend to use Class D topologies. I personally would love to see these speakers hooked up to something like a Yamaha AS1200 and see what kind of thrills that delivers. DALI's Rubikore 6s are well constructed, well engineered speakers. They offer excellent resolution throughout the frequency range with a coloration to tame bright sounding electronics. Also, if you're particularly sensitive to harshness or glare, these may be the speakers for you. Dynamically, you may have to make the same mental shift that I made. That's despite them being speakers of a fair size, they make quick shifts in volume more like compact floor standers. As long as you take those kind of considerations into account, I'm sure you're going to be pretty happy with the performance on offer here. The DALI Rubikore 6s get recommended from this channel. Within a manufacturer's portfolio, there's always some products that you're going to prefer to others. So my question for today is, within the same brand, what are the products that you've liked and the ones that you haven't liked so much, and the reasons why? Please let me know about that in the comment section. I'll look forward to that discussion. I'm sure you know what to do by now. If you want to support me here and what I do, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Check me out on Patreon. There's a couple of consultancy tiers you can access there if you think I can help you on your audiophile journey. Also check out the ABA Club on Patreon, which has some great ways to interact with me and fellow Patreons. But for today, for now, a British audiophile, signing off.